Excellent. Okay, so good evening, everyone. Welcome to our next webinar, which is all about our new county structure. We've got lots to get through tonight, and hopefully you'll find the information we share useful, and we'll have plenty of time for question and answers at the end. A few housekeeping items before we get started and introduce everybody on the call. So we are recording this session so that we'll be able to share it with all our county volunteers afterwards, so you can either rewatch it or watch it at your leisure if anyone was unable to make it this evening. On the next slide, if you'd like to ask a question, we've got some options for you to do that, both through Teams and through our slides. And if there's anything that you're not sure of, we will take it away and see if we can find some answers for you. So lots to get through, so I'm conscious we make a start. So for anyone who doesn't know me, my name is James Hopkins. I'm the transformation lead for Essex, and I'm going to ask all of those on the call to now come off mute and introduce themselves, starting with Chris.
Yeah, I'm Chris Deere, as it says. I'm the volunteer engagement team member, and a lot of my role involves around liaising with districts and later in the year with groups.
Hi everyone, I'm Tilly Stewart. I've joined the transformation team looking at technology and data analysis.
Hi everybody, my name is Bob By, County Lead Volunteer, or in Old Money, County Commissioner.
Hi everyone, I'm Gary Brown. I'm going to be the support team leader. I was currently or previously the DCC support.
Hi everyone, I'm Emma Hopkins, Programme Team Leader.
And I'm Dan Skerlock, also Programme Team Leader alongside Emma.
And I'm Jan Tier. I'm the Interim Volunteering Development Team Leader, and at the moment still the County Training Manager.
Excellent, thank you very much everybody. So that's who we have on the call this evening. In terms of if you want to ask us a question, there's two options to do that tonight. You can do it through the Q&A function on Teams. Depending on your device or how you've logged in will depend on if you have access to that. If you don't, or it's easier, you can scan the QR code on the right hand side or use the link ahaslides.com/Essex, and that will give you another route to asking questions as we go through this evening. So please do ask us any questions you like, and we'll do our best to answer them all at the end of the webinar. And we'll also put these details up again at the end, so don't panic if you've not managed to get in there straight away. So in terms of the purpose for tonight, we're going to give a detailed briefing on our new volunteering culture, the changes to our role titles, and what adopting a team-based approach really means. With that, then we'll then go into the real specifics around our new county structure and what that means for everyone and the actions we'll need all of our current volunteers to take, followed by the questions and answer session. But first, I'm going to hand to Bob By to introduce or provide an introduction to this webinar this evening. Bob.
Thank you, James. So tonight, I can say that I'm actually quite excited about this new structure. The reason being is that with transformation as we've got, it really does give positive stuff, and it's a great opportunity to set the foundations for our growth, not only for our young people, but also for our adult volunteers. At the end of the day, the aim is to make volunteering within Essex Scouts easier and, more importantly, more fun, with a warmer welcome, great induction and learning opportunities, and even more, all supported by easy to use digital tools going forwards. In the future, it will take the pressure of key roles such as mine and some of yours that are currently overburdened by breaking down those roles into small bite-sized chunks. I'm pleased to say that Essex is at the front with this, and we have been doing this now since early 2023, because with the new system coming in terms of digital tools and training going to learning in February 24, we thought that to do it all at one time would be a disaster, hence we're doing this early. But what I'd really like to say is nobody likes change, and it's really important for me to emphasise to all of you that there is a team for everybody in the new structure. But it might look and feel slightly different to what you do now. But there's plenty of support as we go through this and positive conversations to have. And my team will be there to support you this evening. When I took this role on, I said we were going to take Essex on a journey, perhaps not understanding how much of a journey it's going to be. But I'm pleased to say that we've started this journey with the appointments of Gary Brown, Emma Hopkins and Dan Scurlock, and Jan Deere to the county leadership team leader roles. I dearly hope that you do find this evening useful. And now, at great expense, we've managed to get Carl Hankinson, our UK Chief Commissioner, who will summarise the key messages and areas for change that we're going to be delivering during 2023.
Hi, I'm Carl Hankinson, UK Chief Commissioner, and I'm a volunteer like you. And that's why I'm so pleased we're transforming volunteering here at Scouts. We're making it easier, more enjoyable and rewarding, and who doesn't want that? We've done a lot of talking, but now's the time to start making the changes. Why are we doing this? First, let's rewind a moment. Our Skills for Life vision is to prepare more young people with skills for life, supported by amazing leaders delivering an inspiring programme. To do this, we need more volunteers, and we need them to feel valued and supported. If we make volunteering more flexible, easier and more fun, we'll attract more volunteers, and the current ones, like you and me, will want to stay. We've listened to you, our volunteers, as well as potential volunteers. We've found 3 key areas to improve. We need to give a warmer welcome for everybody, we need to deliver better learning and support, and we need to simplify how we volunteer together. All of which needs to be supported by easy-to-use digital tools. These will be rolled out over time in phases, but there's lots that can be done to get started now. We're introducing our volunteering culture. This gives us a shared understanding of what it means to volunteer at Scouts. It outlines how we can support each other, really live up to our values and be at our best while acting as role models for young people. We're moving to teams-based volunteering. This means making changes to how we build our teams and what roles are called. We're making sure responsibilities are clear and tasks can be shared. This means people can volunteer more flexibly and in a way that suits their skills, interests and availability. Executive committees will now be called trustee boards, and there'll be changes to trustees' responsibilities. There's lots of detail on scouts.org.uk, but the changes being led by your local transformation team. They're planning how to make the changes where you are, when the time's right and the best way to do them. We know every area is different. Please speak to your local team and find out about your plans. Take time to understand the changes and think about what they mean for you and your team. I think these changes are really exciting. They're going to move us forward as a movement and will make volunteering easier. Everyone will have different responses to change. For some, change can be really exciting, and for others I know it can be a little scary. But I also know that we can do this together. Through all of this, we need to stay focused on our vision, helping so many more young people gain those fantastic skills for life. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Bob, and to Carl for that introduction. So moving forward and talking about our new volunteering culture. So what is that? That is a shared understanding for what we do and say as volunteers in Scouts, supporting each other, following our values and being at our best while acting as role models for young people. And we're going to delve into that in a little bit more detail with our next video that talks all about that new culture and how we bring that to life.
At Scouts, we give young people skills for life. And that only happens because of volunteers like you. Whether you started yesterday or you've been with us for years, we want you to feel welcome, supported and valued. We'd also love it if you gained some new skills and had some fun too. We value everything you do. That's why it's so important that together we create a strong, positive culture that allows volunteers like you to be at your best. So what does a positive volunteering culture look like? For us, it means really living up to our values. It's about each and every one of us thinking about our words and actions, how they fit with our values, and how they affect others. A positive culture starts and ends with each one of us. Our volunteering culture should encourage new people to join us and make those who are already here want to stay. But for any of this to happen, we need to be clear about what you can expect from Scouts and what's expected from you in return. Our volunteering culture describes how we should behave and gives a shared understanding of what it means to volunteer at Scouts. This builds on the good work you, as volunteers, are already doing. Our volunteering culture means we support and respect each other, live our values, and be role models for young people. It's about taking on the responsibility to create a safe and rewarding experience for a movement we truly believe in, and making Scouts a great place to volunteer. We're proud of our diversity, but for all our differences, as Scouts we share our unique values and culture. That's our greatest strength. The way we act together helps us to achieve our goals. It's all about great volunteers like you. You give the encouragement young people need to step up, speak up, and dream big. Thank you for everything you do.
Okay, so we want our volunteering culture to be something that we're all proud of. And as volunteers in Scouts, we're proud to help young people step up, speak up, dream big, and gain the skills they need for life. So our culture is all about what we expect from each other, focusing on how we can improve the situation we talked about at Essex Base Camp and the national research that's been done that shows that the main reason adult volunteers leave the movement is because of how they've been treated by other adult volunteers. So by working together and living by our values, then hopefully we can create that positive volunteering culture that's just been explained there, and really thrive in what we do and continue to provide great programs for young people. Now, what's really important there to emphasize is that most of us are already doing that, and that's a great thing. We should continue doing that, but there's always room for improvement. There's always things we can do. So when things aren't quite right, we call them out and we have a discussion, even when it would be easier to ignore the problems, so that we're role modeling that behavior for our young people and hopefully then creating a positive environment for everybody. There will be more information coming on the volunteer culture. The statement itself will be published, and there are a series of activities that the new teams within the county and right across every section, group and district can use to really try and embed that approach as we go through the next few years of our transformation journey together. Well, I'm now going to hand to Chris, who's going to talk a little bit more about the changes to our role titles. So Chris, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, James. We just wanted to spend a few minutes this evening before we really get into the detail of the team-based volunteering and our new structures to talk about changes to role titles. I liken this to Girls in Scouting, which many years ago a lot of people had misgivings about, but in the longer term we'll get used to it, and I'm sure most of us will agree that Girls in Scouting really wasn't that bad, and it's actually been good for us in terms of our development of our movement. So changing the role titles, 5 points there at the bottom really sets out why we're looking to change these titles. Mainly there's about perception outside of Scouts. We all know what we're called. We've grown up with lots of role titles, but at the end of the day, we also need to be relatable to people outside of Scouting. And I want to share with you some statistics that have been brought together nationally. And some of these are quite eye-watering, really. And we all know that we've got many vacancies. So 30% of all leadership roles being vacant, 53% of district commissioner and manager roles, and 27% of group scout leader. Maybe that's not a great surprise, but to a certain extent they are large numbers. And 45% of those in leadership roles said their workload was difficult or really difficult because of the amount of pressures that can be put on people. And then the external research, which is shown there at the bottom of the left hand of the screen. Commissioner title does mean lots of different things outside of Scouting. And you know, it's one of those things that really, you know, can be linked to things like colonialism and empire and that sort of thing. But just taking this back one step a moment, you know, these are a national picture. These are not Essex figures. But but I think we all recognise the challenges that they present. And shifting to team-based volunteering is where this is all leading us to address a number of these issues and the vacancies that we've got in some of the key roles. And it's about sharing. That's one of the important things. And the bit at the bottom about the leadership, 7% of people may have said or heard of the title commissioner, but 43% said lead volunteer. And to be honest, since I came onto this programme, lead volunteer is something I've heard more and more about as I look at other organisations. And it's a bit like buying a new car. Suddenly you see all those cars on the road, and suddenly I'm seeing the phrase lead volunteer more and more. So moving on from that, we'll look at what some of these role changes titles are going to be. Now the next slide, please, James. Thank you. Back one, please. We are well rehearsed here, we're very well rehearsed. So Commissioner and Group Scout Leader titles will change across the whole of Scouting. So what we currently know as GSLs, District Commissioners, County Commissioners, etc., will become lead volunteers, and Bob introduced himself earlier as County Lead Volunteer. These are the titles that we're going to be having to get used to as we move forward. And Youth Commissioners, as it says there, will become youth leads. And then looking a little bit further at some of these changes, this is an astounding figure for me, 400 role titles that we have within Scouting. In any organisation, that's very unmanageable. And if any of you have ever looked at POR when you've had a sleepless night, and you look at the last bit about roles and various things, then the spreadsheet goes on and on and on, and you can understand why. So to simplify it, we're introducing team leaders and team members, which will cover most roles within Scouting as we know it. So, we'll talk about section assistants, assistant section leader, deputy commissioners, assistant county commissioners, assistant district commissioners. Many of that, well, those titles, as you'll see in a moment, won't exist in future Scouting. But yeah, team leader and team member is something we're going to look at more and more. So, in essence, the longer term view is that the role title changes will help us and support us in recruiting new volunteers. There's no suggestion that it will fix everything overnight, but certainly the more clearer picture we can present to people about what we do, why we do it, and how we do it, and the tasks that people need to undertake in their roles, should make it easier for us to have those conversations with people when they say they want to volunteer with Scouting, or even if they don't yet know they want to volunteer with Scouting, that we can attract them. This is not so much at county level, but certainly people that are in the front line, the coalface as it were, will want to keep being called, Skip, Owl, Badger. That doesn't change. Those things don't change. They'll still be known as those in their various sections. As I say, it's not so much within the county structure, but certainly when we're looking at groups. And then finally, in this effort to reduce the complex system of over 400 volunteer role titles, on the left-hand side there, you will see the titles that will appear. And this also cascades down to districts and ultimately not all these roles, but some of these roles within groups. So that's the future team descriptions will cover most of the roles that we will have. And James and the team will be talking more about those later in the evening. But as I say, on the left-hand side, that will cover 99% of the roles in Scouting. On the right-hand side is a small list of optional volunteer roles that will fulfill other functions. I think it's just important at the moment, you don't see the title of occasional helper here. That's just being worked on at the moment. We think it might be called a non-member role. They are non-members already, and we might get some more clarity about when it's appropriate for somebody to be given that role, which we hope will come out fairly soon. I'd now like to hand over to James, who's going to talk us through more on the team-based approach to volunteering and specifically within our county. James.
Excellent, thank you, Chris. Okay, so adopting a team-based approach, what does that mean? Let's put some flesh on the bones there to start talking about this in more detail. So there's some key principles to team-based volunteering. So a key part is that volunteers are part of a flexible team. Many people across the country are already doing this really well, but we want it to happen everywhere and make it easy for everybody. And every team needs a clear purpose. So there'll be tasks within each team that can be shared out by that team, so everybody knows, including on any new volunteers that come on board, to understand what we do and try and move that into those bite-sized chunks that Bob was talking about right at the start of this evening. So those are the key principles of team-based approach, and we'll talk a bit more about the practicalities of that. But we also there talked about purpose. So on screen, you can see the new 3 defined purposes for groups, districts and county. And you can see that there are some variations in that. And one of the key things that headquarters wanted to achieve with some of these changes is to remove some of the duplication that we have between districts and county, which is to a differing level in different parts of the UK. But the key principle here is that obviously we have our groups that are running great programs for our young people, working with their local communities, supported by districts that help improve section programs and ensure that Scouts is running the best way possible locally, as well as looking after the 14 to 24 sections, so explorers and network and young leader units. For the county and for us, and what that means is that we help volunteers in the county team, which include the district lead volunteers, to develop and also enhance programs by running things at county level that are best done at scale. And that's it. And we're going to talk and explore that in a bit more detail as we go through the new structures. But that's that clear differential. The idea is that we should be having as much as possible towards the coalface, to where our young people and the majority of our volunteers are delivering great programs for young people. And we're going to explore that more as we go through. Which nicely brings us to the fact that we all know is that program is at the core of what we do. It's what we do for our young people. It's what, as adult volunteers, we deliver for them and enjoy doing with them. So you can see the inverted pyramid here, and it's just re-emphasising that point that actually 90% of our adult volunteers sit in groups and sections and district teams. And it's all about how we realign ourselves and put all of our focus on why are we doing this? Is it for the young people? And asking ourselves those tough questions in some cases. And every volunteer plays a part in that. Now, I know some people might think, okay, program is all that we do, but actually we do have volunteers that support other volunteers, and that's all part of that golden thread of enabling young people to gain skills for life. So team descriptions. Every team will have a defined purpose, who's in the team, and then 2 sets of tasks. So there's tasks that are for the whole team, so that everybody will be responsible for doing. And that could be things like making sure we're inclusive and open, diverse. And then there's allocated tasks. So that's things that are given to specific volunteers to deliver. So for example, that could be booking a venue or writing a section night program or doing the accounts. There could be a whole range of different things. But the key thing here is that there is that clear purpose defined with the task spread out amongst the volunteers in the team. And just to emphasize a little further, here you've got a picture that just kind of demonstrates that. So across the top, you've got Hannah in this example, who's the team leader, and then a series of team members. And then your purple rows are the tasks that have been given to everybody to do. And then you've got a list of allocated tasks that are down to specific people. And the key thing there is to talk around focusing on people's key skills, interests and availability, so that when we're welcoming people or asking people to join teams, either from our current volunteers or from the public or parents, is we'd like you to come in. This is what the team does, and these are the couple of tasks we'd like you to do. That is a much more welcoming and easier, friendly conversation than, would you like to come in and do this really big district commissioner or assistant county commissioner or whatever title it might be or role it might be, that has 3 pages of responsibilities on it. It's just trying to break it down into what do we actually do, the bits that are key to help other adult volunteers to deliver programme to our young people at the front line. And as we've developed the county structure, you're going to see tonight, every sub-team has a written and defined team purpose, and we're going to share those with you. And then, as we've already been working on and will do with the people that join those teams, is further fleshing out those tasks and then sharing them around so that we're making sure everyone is taking part and there's nobody overburdened in some of those key roles. So we've talked about teams, we've talked about team tasks, but what about team leaders? So every team will have at least one team leader, and they can be shared roles, as you've seen tonight. Emma and Dan both share the programme team leader role. They work with their team members to share out those tasks, as we've just described. They're not necessarily responsible for doing everything themselves. That's the whole purpose of having a team, and defining who does what. And within that, there's a number of responsibilities. So the focus is on that positive volunteering culture, a positive team environment, making sure that we are focusing on team members' skills, interests and availability, rather than you have to come every week or you have to do this, those kinds of things. Making sure that within that our young people are at the heart of everything that we do, or at least at the decision making of what we do, and inspiring the team to make sure that that is the case. Being open and inclusive and safe, and following all relevant safety and safeguarding procedures. So there's quite a lot within there, as well as reflecting and reviewing as a team every year how things are working. Do we need to make any changes? And bringing new team members on. So the team leader role includes those responsibilities and making sure those teams are functioning as they should be, all aligned to our Skills for Life strategy. So that is what a team leader does in the future. Okay, so then we move to sub-teams. So within the defined structure, which we will be talking about, you can have sub-teams, and we've created those and we'll be sharing those tonight. The purpose of those sub-teams is where we may have certain tasks that make sense to group together and have a sense of identity and make better use of volunteers' time, rather than having hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of team members. Actually group them into sub-teams with a defined purpose that supports the overall purposes. It makes more sense. So as a simple example here, we may have a hill walking or climbing team within the programme team as a small example. And to further help with that, we have a new thing called accreditations. And this is, we've talked about wanting to make it easier for people to give their valuable time in a way that really works for them, and unburdening key roles and sharing out the load. So accreditations is what helps us with that. So what an accreditation is the permission to do a specific task, not a role. Okay, so some of the things you can see on the screen, you probably think, well, that's a role I do now. Great, that's excellent. In the future, that's a permission to do a specific task. And there is going to be certain criteria to have a certain accreditation, as you would expect. So it might be a qualification, it might be a piece of specific learning for a particular role or prior experience, maybe from the workplace. And some will expire over time and need to be reviewed and given again. These will come with the new system in February 2024, but within the design of the new structure, we have included these so that we're making sure we're ready for the new system when it comes. And you can see some of the examples that will be available from day one in the system, and they have to be given to someone obviously after the relevant qualification or learning has been completed, usually by a team leader or a lead volunteer. And then there's a further list of potential accreditations. So these lists of tasks are ones that sit with the lead volunteer today, but in the future they are things that can be formally delegated to a volunteer with the right experience. So as a small example, we may have someone who is a lead volunteer, say for a district, has responsibilities for safeguarding, but perhaps doesn't have a professional work life or professional background in it, Well, actually, there might be a volunteer in the district team that is trained to the nines on safeguarding, knows it inside out. Well, actually, it would make a lot of sense to make that person the safeguarding lead, and they would be then the point of contact to action and deal with any cases on a reactive basis. It's that kind of thing that we're looking at here. So you can see some other examples like welcome conversation volunteer that will come later in the year, nights away approver, and so forth. So these are at the discretion of the lead volunteer, and they do sit with them from day one, and it's up to them whether they choose to delegate those out. But hopefully you can see that that helps with starting to spread out the load from some of those key roles. Okay, on to the detail. So introducing our new county structure. So we talked about our volunteering culture, the reasons behind the changes to role titles, and adopting a team-based approach. And we're going to turn to the application of that for us here in Essex. And the first thing, again, as Bob emphasised, and I want to emphasise again now, is that there is a team for everyone in the new structure to match your experience, skills, and interest. So please don't worry if there's things you think about, actually, I'm not sure where I'm going to fit or how this is going to work. There is a team for everybody as we go through this process. It may just look or feel a little bit different or have a slightly different purpose to what it does today. So in terms of the county structure, hopefully some of you will have seen this particular picture already, but if not, this is what the sort of headlines of the new county structure looks like. So there is a county leadership team, which is focused on things like making sure the team works well, is inclusive and reflective, and those kinds of things, and provides the core strategic leadership for the county. We then have the trustee board, which will look after governance, ensuring budgets are set and risks are managed. And then we have our three core teams where we're really going to get into a lot of detail. So you've got volunteering development team, program, and support. And each of our new team leaders in those areas are going to talk about that as we go through. Now, there has been a webinar on trustee boards, and I don't intend to spend a lot of time on that tonight, but there is a part that's relevant. So we have one slide here on the focus on governance and the split of tasks between governance and support or operational tasks. So the operational tasks you can see on the right-hand side are the elements that will shift into the operational structure that you just see on the previous slide, primarily into the support function. The reason we're mentioning that is that those aspects, obviously, we've planned into the new structures you're going to see. So if you think, oh, actually, currently that's as part of the executive committee as it stands today, you understand why that sits as part of the support function in the new structures. So just to differentiate those things like campsites and fundraising and websites and all that kind of stuff, that will move that direction. So moving on to our teams. So the county leadership team to begin with, you see the purpose here is to lead and inspire volunteers to give young people great experiences and skills for life. They make sure their county teams are organised, have enough volunteers, and can deliver a great programme. Within that team, we have a number of roles. So on this next slide, you can see there is the county youth lead, the support, volunteering development and programme team leaders, along with myself as the transformation lead, and our 20 district lead volunteers as a formal part of that county leadership team, setting the direction for everything that we do in Essex, led by Bob as our county lead volunteer. Then we have our trustee board. So the purpose of the trustee board is a team of volunteers who work together to make sure Scouts is run safely and legally. They make sure the charity is well managed, risks are assessed and mitigated, buildings and equipment are in good order, and everyone follows any legal requirements and policy, organisation and rules, or POR. In terms of who's in the team, the membership of trustee boards doesn't change in 2023. We believe there will be some changes for 2024 that we'll find out about at the end of the year, and we'll share that as soon as we have it. So for now, the membership of trustee board is as follows. So you have your different types of trustees, whether it's appointed, ex officio, co-opted, etc. The treasurer, the trustee board administrator or secretary, because that role doesn't have to be a trustee in the new structures. and also the Adult Appointments Committee. So the change from Adult Appointments Committees to Warmer Welcome will come as part of the new system in February 2024. So for now, that stays officially as a team on the trustee board, but we'll be working as part of the volunteering development team and the build up to that transition and getting ready for a warmer welcome. I'm now going to ask Jan to come on and introduce the volunteering development team.
Okay, so the volunteer development team is to make sure that all our volunteers in the county teams have a fantastic volunteering experience, really making it easier for people to join the team and learn new skills. So who will be in the team? Well, the volunteer development team leader, all the members, and then some team leaders of various sub-teams that were set up at county level. The tasks for the whole team are very much around embedding the volunteering culture, attracting and welcoming new volunteers, that'll be part of the warmer welcome process, making sure our volunteers are well supported, this will be sort of like the induction programme, giving volunteers support with their learning, and then rewarding and recognising our volunteers.
Okay, thank you, Jan. So to break that down into a bit more detail, we talked about sub-teams. So these are the 4 sub-teams that we're going to have. And I should be really clear here that every team has a team leader and team members. So starting off with the recruitment and welcome team, their purpose is to undertake the induction, warmer welcome conversations when they come, and recruitment activities for all county teams. They regularly check in as well with all team leaders across the new structure to ensure that the volunteering culture is embedded. That team then is followed by the recognition team. So their purpose is to show appreciation for volunteers' brilliant contribution, formally and informally. So that could be things like awards events or receiving them and making sure that they're presented, or thank yous and commissioner commendations and other things that we can do to make sure we're thanking all of our volunteers for the great things that they do. Then we have the training to learning sub-team. So this is a lift and shift of our current training team. So all of our current training setup sits in the training to learning team. It's the only one that's like that because the changes around moving to the new learning system are happening gradually over a couple of years. So there's a number of things we have to work through there collectively as a team. So for now, that team will move as it is today into the training to learning team and look at all the things we need to do around finding, accessing or delivering learning opportunities over the coming years. And then we have a first aid team, which will focus specifically on delivering, finding or making sure that first aid training is available for all those that need. Again, whilst we understand what's coming in terms of the requirements around first aid learning in the future. So that is our volunteering development team. It is in parts new in terms of the way it's formed, and its real focus is just to make sure that all of our volunteers, current and future, have that brilliant welcome and induction, and really focusing on those activities with a consistent experience right across the board. Whether you're someone that wants to be an archery instructor, working on a campsite, being a learning assessor, whatever it might be, that those volunteers have the same experience, know everything they need to know as part of joining the movement with Essex Scouts. So moving on to the programme team, I'm going to ask Emma to come on and introduce the programme team.
Hi everyone. I'm really excited about the new purposes of the programme team. The county programme team are going to be there to support sectional programmes when activities or events are best done at county scale. So when a group or a district cannot run something else, that's what we're here to help them provide. We're also going to help volunteers with assessments for adventurous activity permits. So who's in the team? The programme team leaders. So you have, that's myself and Dan. Then we've got our programme team members. We've also got several sub-teams, which James is going to talk you through. And each of those sub-teams, as he said before, will have a team leader of their own. There are lots of tasks involved in the programme team, setting up those county events, helping sections to improve and develop their programmes through their district teams, and approving those county activities and permits.
Okay, thank you, Emma. So in terms of the sub-teams within programme, there's so many of them that we've got to do this across a couple of slides. So we're going to move on quite quickly and talk through those and what they mean. So starting with the four you can see on screen. So we're going to have an international events team, which is their purpose is to organise and deliver international events that are best done at county scale and focus on top awards. Top awards is a really key part of the Skills for Life strategy, making sure that our young people have the opportunity to complete and earn those right across the board. We're then going to have a 4 to 13 programme support team. So this team's purpose is to deliver networking and peer support for district programme teams, again with that focus on top awards. They help district teams to build capacity and knowledge in local teams and identify opportunities for support or events best done at county scale. So this team is not sectional as we have now. It is focusing right across, effectively look at that group age range support, so from Squirrels, Beavers, Cubs and Scouts together, whether that be things like instant activities or community programme partnership ideas that actually are best done at county scale where the district has asked for them. So there's that real piece around engagement and helping districts to deliver as much programme themselves all through their groups at the front line. So this team will work with the adult volunteers in those district programme teams to help them with that. Then we move on to our archery team. So the archery team's purpose is to work with the events team, that's what I'm going to talk about on the next slide, to deliver specialist archery events for young people, which are best done at scale, whilst also supporting county events by delivering archery activities. They'll also work with the learning team to provide learning that enables volunteers to progress towards an archery permit. So a couple of intricacies there, and hopefully you can start to see that working as one overall large county team, that there inherently is built-in cross-working between these teams. So for example, there we've talked around the learning team. So the training to learning team is the front door for all of our county volunteers in the future. So they'll look at everything, whether that's digital system, modular staff branching out, practical skills, or things that help towards adventurous activity permits. So they'll provide like a coordination role there. And so, for example, here, they may then come to the archery team to actually deliver that learning. Similarly with the water team, as you can see, they're a very similar purpose. The water team is not a team we currently have. So this is a new team that has been decided to create. So similarly like the archery team, looking at delivering specialist water-based events for young people best done at scale with the events team, and also we're working with the learning team to provide anything that's needed there to progress towards a variety of water-based permits. Then moving on to the next four sub-teams of programme. So we mentioned before the events team there. So our events team will organise and deliver events that are best done at county scale with the focus on top awards, recognition or learning. So the events team will do tasks like bookings, programme, facilities, health and safety, writing content, those kinds of all manner of things that you would need for running an event. Now, you might think, actually, we do quite a lot of events as a county. That sounds quite scary. Please don't assume that everything we've done to date will all be done again in the future through that team. That focus we talked about, those changes in purposes for groups, districts and counties. It's for county, it's the focus on things that are best done at scale, and then helping districts to build capacity to deliver events locally as much as possible, because it's important that the programme is as reachable and obtainable for our young people and the groups as close to them as possible. Moving on then, we have a permits team. So the permits team will approve county nights away notifications, adventurous activity permits, visits abroad, those kind of things, effectively anything we may need an approval for. And that includes a number of those accreditations that we talked about earlier in terms of being able to delegate those tasks. So that's what the permits team will focus on. We then have a 14 to 24 programme support team. So this mirrors the 4 to 13 one that we just talked about. So obviously the focus here though is slightly different. in that all districts will have a 14 to 24 team leader and team in the future that's looking after Explorers Network and young leader units. So this mirrors that setup. So whereas the 4 to 13 is more working through district program teams around group-based activities, the 14 to 24 program support team does similar things around instant activities and community program partnerships, etc. But we'll look at supporting specifically the 14 to 24 team leaders in district teams. And then finally, similar to archery and the water team, we've also got our mountaineering team. So again, working with the events team to deliver specialist mountaineering events for young people best done at scale, and also through the learning team for volunteers that want to come on board and work towards hill walking and climbing permits. So there's an awful lot there. 8 sub-teams within programme that both Emma and Dan are jointly responsible for, and hopefully you can see through that a shift in focus that matches the new purposes and the new structure that headquarters have given us to work with. I'd now like to ask Gary to come off mute and introduce the support team.
Hi everyone. Yes, as I said, I'm going to be running the support team, going to be the lead volunteer. As you can see, the purpose is to support the county team and give them the tools and resources that they need to help Scouts run smoothly in their county. That's going to be quite a large task. Who's going to be in the team? As before, there's going to be a support team leader, myself. There's going to be a large number of support team members because there's lots of tasks that are going to be undertaken by this team. And there again will be sub-team leaders for each of those areas. The task for the whole team will be to, some of them will be to support locally, engaging with the community, create and look after relationships within the organisation and to help Scouts grow locally, sort of very important areas, and support effective processes, and also look after the property and equipment, again, a no small task, which James is now going to outline to you.
Thank you, Gary. So again, there's 8 sub-teams within the support team. So we've got this over a number of slides again, like the programme team. So let's delve into those in some more detail. So first up, we've got a public relations team. So the purpose for this team is to work alongside external organisations and the public to emphasise the benefits of Scouting, enabling the growth of a diverse and equitable youth and adult membership. So this team will do tasks like working with local councils around Section 106 funding, growth and development around increasing our youth and adult numbers, building and nurturing those relationships with organisations that can help us with that. So whether that be a faith-based organisation, education, developers, there's lots of opportunity there alongside the external communications functions. So things like websites, content delivery, local ambassadors, that kind of stuff. So anything to do with being externally facing, that team will do. Then we move to the Equity, Diversity and Inclusion team. So this team's purpose is to support adult volunteers in districts to ensure that Essex Scouting is truly open and accessible to all. So this team is a team of specialists that focus on expertise and tasks around case management, anything that might come up, whether it might be linked to special needs, financial access to Scouting, LGBT, anything along those kinds of lines would sit around within the Equity, Diversity, Inclusion team. So to provide that support in a central setup to support all of our districts with some of those potentially complex case matters that come up, or things that our volunteers perhaps are not so used to dealing with and need some support with. So that is what that team will do. Then we move to the digital team. So their purpose is to deliver and ensure a consistent digital provision across all internal and external facing platforms across the county. So this will be anything from managing the back end of things like the website, our email systems, security around that, web meeting systems, cloud storage, you name it, all those kinds of things, making sure that the whole county team has the tools they need alongside the system that headquarters are providing to do our roles effectively and with as little admin as possible. And then finally, we have the administration team. So their purpose is to provide support for county meetings, to ensure the efficient and smooth running of Essex Scouts, and they help with archiving and producing reports. So things that sit in here could be taking minutes at various different meetings, agendas, booking venues for face-to-face meetings, the archiving things around our heritage, producing compliance reports, and anything along those kinds of lines would sit in the administration team. That's the first 4 sub-teams. Moving on to the next 4. So we talked before around how operational matters will move away from the current executive committees as they become trustee boards. So in here we have a Screens Park team, and their purpose is to oversee all aspects of the operation and upkeep of the activity centre. So whether that is the recruitment and management of staff, proposing options for the strategic direction of it to the county leadership team, the maintenance of the site, running activities, taking bookings, all within the budget set by the trustee board, all sits within the Screens Park team. Then we have the equipment and property team. So this team's purpose is to store, maintain, hire and make available all assets owned by Essex Scouts, including Thriftwood Training Centre. So key thing here is about bringing our assets together and making sure that everyone knows what we have and ensuring that it's available should it be needed to support any of the county's activities in a nice and easy, friendly, accessible way. Then we have the marketing team. So the purpose here is internally focused. So keeping Essex Scouts members updated by writing content, issuing timely and relevant information and sharing positive news stories. Along with that, they provide specialist support to all county teams, whether that be things like design, print, asset creation, videography or photography. This particular team leader, or if it's shared team leaders, will also line manage and support anyone that's volunteering in any of the other teams, because the plan is to have tasks in each team around content writing, to be able to pull that together from across the structure into the marketing team to make sure we're sharing all that information in a timely way that's on brand and clear and simple for our volunteers to understand. And then finally, the last team in support is a new one, incident management. So their purpose is to act as the point of contact for all issues and complaints raised to the county related to safety, safeguarding, suspensions, data and resolutions. For those of you that are eagle-eyed, you'll have seen that those 5 things are some of the accreditations that a lead volunteer can choose to delegate to people with the relevant qualifications, experience or learning. So the intention here is to have a team that does those things to help share the load from the lead volunteer, but also to make sure we've also got some experts there to specifically help us with those tasks. So that is a support team, so another 8 sub teams there across the board, and quite a lot that we've run through. So now we're going to talk about what that means for all of us. So and there's probably some parts in here most will probably want to reflect on after this evening when the recording becomes available. There's many familiar teams, plenty of new teams, some with slight changes to their focus and their purpose. And you may be wondering, where do I fit into this? What do I want to do next? So let's focus on that home stretch before we get on to Q&As. So hopefully this slide will ring some bells for those at Essex Base Camp. So this is our timeline that we're working to. We've successfully completed those that have got green arrows. So we did our task lists. We had our headline structure approved by Bob and the county leadership team. We've recruited to those key roles of programme, volunteering development and support team leaders. And we've got our briefing webinar tonight. And we're about to start the next stage of one-to-ones and team discussions before we go live with our new structures on the 1st of July. So the thing for us all to ask is, what will be my next adventure? Do you want to continue being part of a similar team? Perhaps you're looking for a new challenge. Maybe there's something on there that's piqued your interest, or something didn't exist before that you thought, actually, I fancy a go at that, or that's something I've got experience in elsewhere that I'd like to bring to scouting. Or maybe you'd like to progress to being a team leader. the main thing here, and the key message, as we said before, is that there's a team for everyone in this new structure, and everyone will have the opportunity to outline where they would like to be, what team they'd like to be a part of, based on those purposes, those new purposes and those new sub-teams that we've shared this evening. We're not, as it says there on screen, we're not lifting and shifting teams en masse. We're not saying you have to go there, you have to do that, because that's not how this works. We want everybody to have that opportunity to make a choice of where you may wish to be. Now, if you're thinking about staying as part of a similar team, with the next couple of slides, we've given a quick and simplistic overview of mapping our current teams to similar new teams in the new structures. It's not exhaustive, so don't panic if yours, your team or role isn't on there. It's just because there's over 400, as Chris said earlier, and it's impossible to cover every scenario. So hopefully this will help. Now, this first slide covers our current Scout Active Support Units. Obviously, as you've seen through our new team structure and our new role titles, Scout Active Support Units, as they operate today, don't in the future. They become either their tasks that they do become parts of some of the teams that we've shown you tonight. So what we've done here is listed all the current Scout Active Support Units we have in Essex, and where some of the tasks that they do today are sitting in the future structures, just to give that feel of where you might think I might want to sit or might want to do in the future if I want a similar team to join to what I do today. So talk through some examples here. So for example, we've got county stores. In the future, though, the tasks that county stores do today will largely sit within support under the equipment and property subteam. Then we've got some more complex examples. So for example, the media Scout Active Support Unit we have, obviously those tasks, as you've heard, could sit in a range of teams, whether that be public relations, marketing, or being embedded in one of the teams to help write content and bring that back into those marketing or public relations teams. So hopefully that helps visualize or provide some guidance as to if you want to do a similar thing, where that might sit in the future. Then moving on to groups of current roles. So again, down the left-hand side, we've got bundles of those current roles as they stand today, and which future teams do some of the tasks that those roles do today. So again, picking on a couple of examples here. So if your current role is based around adult awards, that would sit as part of the volunteer and development team under the recognition sub-team. There are a number where, for example, like non-section based assistant county commissioners and others that actually there's a discussion to be had, because those tasks sit in various different places. But as we've said all the way through, there is a team for everybody. So again, hopefully this helps if you're in one of these current roles and you're thinking about doing something similar. This gives some guidance around that. Then we're going to talk about the process for team leaders. So what we want to ensure here is fairness and transparency with the process. So for some new teams, there are several current role holders that are a close match, and therefore those sit in the sort of ring fence column. For others, there are volunteers that are as near to as match as you can get, and therefore those people will be offered the opportunity to be that team leader in the first instance. If they no longer wish to carry on with those teams, then that team leader role would be advertised internally and externally, mirroring those in the advertised column. So that left-hand column, just for clearness, is where there isn't a very clear match or a exact match to today, either in post or not. So those ones will be advertised for anybody to apply for straight from the get-go after tonight. And then the middle ones, there are a number of current role holders that could apply for those roles. So again, in fairness to them, it's ring-fenced specifically to them before we go anywhere else. And Dan, Gary and Emma will reach out to those volunteers specifically affected there. And then the column on the right is where we have someone it's a like-for-like example to what we have today. So the current role holder would be given the first opportunity to take that team leader role. And I think at this point, it's useful just to flick back a couple of slides before we sum up to look at this bit, which is, what do you want your next adventure to be? Is it something similar, or is it a new challenge? You might have done something for a really long time and actually fancy a go at something else. All of those situations are absolutely fine and welcomed. And the key message here is it's for everyone to state what they want to do. No one will be forced to do anything they wish to or being told what team they're going to be in. It is a choice for every individual to make. So the next steps for everyone. We want to try and make this as easy as possible for everyone. So we do have a very short Google form that has been set up to capture responses. And what we're asking everyone to do, everyone who's a current volunteer in the county team, I think that's just over 500 people, big numbers, is to state by the 26th of May whether they wish to apply to be a team leader or state an interest in being part of one or more of the new teams. You can be on more than one team. That is absolutely an option. We do that today. What we are saying is that we won't appoint one person to be more than to be a team leader of two or more teams. So the team leader role will be unique. You can be a team leader, but in terms of being a team member in any team, if there's things that interest you in multiple places, that's absolutely cool. And absolutely okay. So in terms of support that's available to you, Jan, Gary, Emma and Dan will be proactively reaching out to teams to have discussions with them between now and the 26th of May, if it's wanted, to talk about the new structures and what that means for you and any practical questions you may have, and also one-to-ones where that's more appropriate. And if you've got a question that hasn't been asked tonight, then you can submit us an email to transformation@essexscouts.org.uk, and we'll make sure we come back to you or point you to the right person who can help with the answer. So just to summarise here what that means. So tonight is our new county structure briefing webinar. We'll ask everyone to have a think about what they'd like to do going into the future. And to share this recording when it comes out, we will email it to everybody, but to share it with your teams and encourage everybody to engage with it. Take up the chance for a conversation with our new team leaders. If you want to, please do access that opportunity if it's something that you think would be valuable. Complete the Google form by the 26th of May. And then after that, there'll be further conversations around appointing people to those new teams or interviews for the team leader positions, all with an aim for us to go live on the 1st of July with our new structures. And that doesn't mean necessarily every role will be filled on the 1st of July, but we will be going live with our structures and working in that new way from that point. So it's really key to emphasise there that our current structures as we have them today remain in place and are operational until that point. So nothing changes until then, but obviously this process will be going alongside that. Okay. That brings us to our Q&A. So I'm going to ask all of our team leaders and lead volunteer to be on camera for this. And we have the opportunity for questions from everyone. So either through the Teams Q&A function or through the AHA slides opportunity. So Tilly, would you like to kick us off with the first questions that we've got?
Sure, I'll do these chronologically as we had quite a few come in. The first one is, so safeguarding district lead would really lace DCs from doing this task. I think we need a bit more context onto that. So I'll skip on to the next one, which is a recruitment and welcome, what now GSLs will do.
So recruitment and welcome, Jan, would you like to pick up that one?
I would, but I don't know the answer, because actually at the moment we don't have the information about exactly how the warm and welcome process will work. So as soon as we do, we will share that with the wider audience.
Brilliant. Next one, will people with multiple roles be a part of multiple teams?
So everyone will have the opportunity, as we've just described, to state which teams or team they'd like to join. There's no obligation to be part of multiple teams. It's entirely your choice as to what you'd like to do. So obviously, if someone tries to join all, I think 27 teams or however many there are, we might be asking some questions about deliverability. But obviously, in terms of what you do now, we're not saying you do this, so therefore you have to do that in the future. It is an individual choice for each person.
Next one is there any update on what is going to happen with the county ASUs such as Scout Pride Essex?
So ASUs, as we've shown on screen tonight, do not exist in their current state in the future. That's a decision that headquarters have taken. In the future, we have teams and sub-teams. So the sub-teams you have seen on screen tonight are the ones that the county has chosen to progress with. And obviously you can see within there are probably similar things to what some of the SASUs do today that sit in some of those teams. So if you currently sit as part of a Scout Active Support Unit, there is a choice there to look at those sub-teams, look at the purposes and some of the tasks that they do, and make a choice about what you'd like to do in the future in those teams. But then to be really direct about the question, no, there is not this is what this is today, and it's exactly the same in the future, because that's not what we're trying to achieve here with this teams-based approach and the changes in purposes around groups, districts and counties.
Brilliant. Next one, has a digital tool been chosen at national or county level for the management of tasks within a team or sub-team?
Not that I'm aware of. In terms of the detail, for anyone who didn't make it, we did run through what we know so far about the new digital tool on last week's webinar about preparing for the new digital system. As we get more information about it, then we will share. But in the meantime, there is and will be templates as we showed on screen around how to organise ourselves within teams, so the team members in the columns, and then the allocated tasks and the tasks for everybody, so that each of the new teams can use that as a basis for operating in our new structures from the 1st of July.
Next one is, how will the Google form be circulated?
Lots of questions for them, very fun. So it will be emailed out. So we're aiming to do this really quickly, obviously bearing in mind volunteer time. The intention is to share a copy of this recording along with the Google form to be completed within the next couple of days. We will email that to everybody that holds a county role on Compass. So assuming that your email address is correct on Compass, because everybody's been on and done that and updated their email addresses already, then you will receive the details. There's probably also an ask there for anyone who's currently a line manager to also obviously share that and make sure that all your team members, as they stand today, receive the information, please.
And the last one I've got for the moment is, given that districts will be going through a similar process, is there a timescale for that to happen, as many of us will be wanting to consider district or group roles too?
It's a great one. Chris, I can't see Chris online. If you're there, Chris, did you want to pick that one up?
Hold on. Hello. Yes, districts are going through. Can I be heard, by the way?
Yep.
Yeah. So districts are going through this process. We had our first cohort meeting, as we're calling them, of districts a couple of weekends ago, where we started to go through the process of looking at team structures, etc. We've got more planned for the weekend of the 10th, 11th of June, and the final 2 sessions on the last weekend in June. So all districts will be going through exactly the same process. Some of them may or may not align certain things with what the county is doing. Certainly they've got to have the 3 programme, volunteer development team and support teams in place, because that's part of the structure. But they can decide what is going to suit them best in terms of their size, demographics, etc. But yeah, districts will be going through the same process, and we anticipate them going live with their structures in the last quarter, I think we said, of 2023.
That's all I have for now on questions.
Okay, what I am going to do is I'm just going to pop back up the slide we had for Slido, and so I'm conscious it wasn't on that last slide, so I apologise because I think I did say that was the case. So if anyone hasn't yet asked any questions that they wish to ask or not had the option to, please do scan that QR code and pop the question in, or use the link there. You can type that in ahaslides.com/Essex, and we'll answer any further questions that come in the next minute or two.
We had one come through. Where is the caving team? We did not know about this.
Emma or Dan, do you want to take that one?
Find the mute, sorry. So I think at the moment the caving team is probably up for review at the moment, based on where we thought the kind of the aim of all the activity teams we've got that didn't necessarily fit in with what they've done historically in the past and certainly in the last few years. So at the moment they're not set to continue as a caving team in their own format. There are obviously potentially some links with the mountain team in terms of a specialist area that kind of where caving activities happen aren't necessarily in Essex. So there's potential that they can kind of team members can join into mountain, or we've got other opportunities in other activity areas or any other of the county roles that have been discussed already.
Brilliant, thank you. Next one I've got is, so we have to apply for our current roles.
So what we talked through there is what we didn't want to do is say to everyone, you do this now, so therefore you have to do this in the future, because that isn't how we work as volunteers. So there is the opportunity to state an interest in being part of a team. It's not an application. Being a team member, it's this is what I want to do. And obviously, unless there's any grave concerns, which I'm sure there won't be, then I'm sure that'll be okay. It's more about a discussion about the tasks that those people will do within those teams, just so everyone's really clear about what they are doing in the future. In terms of the team leader roles, obviously there's a long list of new team leader roles that don't exist today, so those ones are an application process. And for the ones that are virtually a direct match, again, it's not an application. That is a discussion to say, do you want to continue doing this? And if you do, then you carry on with that role with the updated or new purposes of those teams.
Yeah, James, can I just butt in here on this one?
Of course.
I'm sure many of you may have gone through a similar process in a working environment and been thinking to yourselves, oh my God, this is like a voluntary redundancy exercise. Can I stress that this is not the case? It's about how we move forward and how you actually have all our really great volunteers in Essex, how you have the opportunity to focus how we move forward. And as James has said, you might decide that because some of the tasks that you're good at work or otherwise suits you better to your current role, it's just giving you the opportunity to think about it and maybe have a change. So as we said at the start, there's no redundancies. There's a place for every team member in this county. And I would hope that everybody moves along with this and actually gives us the opportunity to take Essex forward in the structure and to support our young people. Because at the end of the day, as a graph showed earlier, it's about getting programs, toppables and supporting our young people with the support of adults in the right roles with the right skills. Thanks, James.
Excellent. Thanks, Bob.
Next one I've got is, are there plans for a young leader Q&A to help them get involved and understand what's changing? Might be fun for them with other young people.
That's a brilliant question, and something we will definitely take away to think about and see how we can do that and where that's best placed. Because absolutely, young people should be at the forefront of everything we do. And just to elaborate a little further on that, we do have youth shaped or young members on the transformation team, and obviously we'll be looking as part of all the new teams to make sure that 18 to 25-year-olds are embedded into every single one of those sub teams you saw tonight.
Brilliant, thank you. Next one. Why has the county caving team not transferred like the mountaineering or water team?
I think
Dan,
Dan just answered that question.
Yep.
Next one is what happened to EIJ appeared on the summary slide but not in detail.
I apologise. I did have a line in my notes to talk about Essex International Jamboree, so it's not forgotten. Absolutely not forgotten. But so Essex International Jamboree does sit within the programme team, as it is already very well established and running. Full steam ahead for 2024. The team obviously will report into Emma and Dan, but there will be a dotted line remaining into Bob as the lead volunteer as per the current setup. So we can have more of a conversation around that between now and the end of May, but that's where the team sits and will continue as it operates today.
Next one I've got, I know the Pride ASU has been asked about, but think the team are confused as it would be one of the current teams which moving forward seems to cover multiple new teams. How will such work?
It's a good question. So obviously we've said we will have follow-up conversations and definitely that will happen. We will be offered with each of the Scout Actor support units. For the Pride team, obviously thinking on the top of my head here, some of the tasks that you do today could sit as part of the future Equity, Diversity, Inclusion team. If your interests are in doing programme or adapting programmes to ensure that they're inclusive, then that could be sitting perhaps as part of one of the 4 to 13 or 14 to 24 teams in programme. Or it might be that you're really interested in delivering learning around those topics, and again that could be part of the future training to learning team. So there's lots of options there. The key thing is, as we've said through, it's all around someone's skills, interests and availability. So it's understanding what you are interested in and then looking to join a team that fits that interest.
What is the future of training advisors?
Jan, would you like to say that one?
Well, we know that they will become learning advisors, but that's all we know at the moment. So headquarters have not released any further information apart from the fact that there is a need for learning advisors, but we don't exactly know what that role will be or what the validation criteria will be. It is not going to be the exact same role as it is now.
Next one, is there a place for more young leaders in these roles?
There's definitely a place for more young people in these teams and these roles. Absolutely. Obviously, young leaders per se specifically is obviously part of a district with young leader units and being part of or supporting sections. But young members, 18 to 25 or otherwise, absolutely, it's definitely going to be part of everything we do. Key task for everyone is to make sure we are fully youth shaped and put young people at the heart of everything we do. Best way to do that is to have those young people on those teams.
Brilliant. Next one is, do you have role explanations in more detail, as a lot of the titles are very vague?
So in terms of the titles themselves, obviously like team member and team leader, for example, it's the purposes and the tasks of the teams that gives the details to what's there. So there will be obviously more information, more planning going on behind the scenes with our current volunteers as those teams are built and developed over time. So there will be some there, and obviously if there's specific questions you've got, then we can either try and answer them tonight, or that will be part of those one-to-ones or follow-up conversations that Jan, Dan, Emma and Gary will be following up with you on.
Again, just cutting across, I think that's a really important point to stress, because there are probably loads of things that we haven't thought about in terms of team tasks, which will come out in the discussions going forward. And there's some things going forward that we might decide need tweaking a bit. But yeah, it's a first stab at getting this right. There's a lot of thought and correspondence and team tasks have been sent out, but I can assure you there are probably things we haven't thought about in this, and that's why the whole point is it's about having discussions with your teams and seeing what the tasks are so we can get this right.
Next one is, where will the new roles be advertised?
So we will look to use our current options, so things like Essex Plus, the website, And obviously, in terms of all our current county volunteers, we'll make sure that they're included. Obviously, the details will be included in what we send out from the recording. But yeah, Essex Plus emails and the website will be our primary functions, as well as obviously asking everyone to share them as far and wide as possible. Not just with our current pool of volunteers, but parents, the public, someone at work. Bob, you had a great story actually.
I did,
about
yeah.
someone you talked to, didn't you? Which is
I just thought about that. I mean, as we're talking about tasks, as an example, one of our parents is coming on a family camp, and one of the aspects that they did on doing their DBS, they had to give their job title, and it turns out that they are head of risk in terms of building management and subcontractors for a local council. Now, that is a task in itself, and from an ideal point of view, any campsite may want that person to actually get involved. If actually I've asked them if they would talk to Screens Park. And that's what we mean about tasks. That is not a regular Friday evening or Wednesday afternoon. It's about someone with specific skills that we can draw on to make sure other people's tasks are easier. And if you take that as an example, if you're running a campsite or you've got property, not everybody on your trustee board or in your group team may be having those skills. So it's just finding a parent or something that has that, and that may be their only task, that they actually review all the risk of the buildings once a year, but that takes it away from somebody else. So it's a really good example, as James says, of identifying tasks and recruiting new volunteers to actually carry those out.
What happens to the current assessors who don't have a place in the new structure?
So, Dan, what I'll do is just say, obviously, assessors in terms of approving things, so approving permits, that kind of stuff sits in the new permit sub team. But I don't know, Dan, if there's anything further you'd like to add to that.
Yeah, so as James says, there's a permit sub team within programme, and all the assessors will end up in there, kind of much in the way that they currently do sit underneath either the maps for the discipline specific or just generally under me and my previous guys as ACC activities. So yeah, that very much is the team that you will end up as part of if you are an activity assessor.
Next one is, will districts have ASUs?
No. But the great stuff they do and the tasks that they do will, presumably will be incorporated into the district's new teams as they design them. So as we work through those and those district cohort days we've talked about that we've started, and we have the rest in June that Chris talked about, all of that planning will happen then as part of that work.
Next one is, please clarify the secretary title, a trustee or not a trustee?
It is optional, so that will be part of a conversation between the chair of the trustee board and the current secretary, and probably involving Bob as well, I imagine, around that role. So Chris talked about on the trustee board webinar about it quite often, if you're in that role and you're taking minutes and listening to everything that's going on, it's then hard to contribute. So what headquarters have done is made it an optional role as to whether it's a trustee or not. So there's a discussion to be had there.
And next one is, there seems to be a lack of the word Scouts in team titles. Is this a deliberate ploy to hide the fact that we are Scouts?
Chris, would you like to pick that up as you did the title section for us tonight?
Yeah, I think we shouldn't get too hung up on it. It came up when we ran the base camp back in December, and of course we badge everything under scouting. So if we're advertising internally, externally for team leaders, lead volunteers, etc., we will always badge that under scouting. You could argue the same thing sits at the moment with county commissioner, district commissioner. There's not a scouting in that title at all. So I think it's how we promote it, and it's how we advertise things and get the right PR in terms of what we're doing. So it doesn't say scout leader, Beaver Scout leader, Cub Scout leader, etc. But groups will be looking at those sorts of issues later in the year when we start looking at groups. But as I say, at the current time, not all of our titles have scout in them at all. But the idea of the lead volunteer, the team leader, the team member is part of the bigger picture of the whole transformation programme and what collectively it will do to help us to move things forward and grow our movement.
The next one I've got is, with regards to of the property team, are they only looking around Screens and Frithwood, or all Scouts campsites? Are campsites in districts being involved in district meetings as nothing has been heard?
So there's a number of things there to break up. So anything to do with a district team or a district campsite will be part of when the districts start their process. So we talked tonight about the county structure, not about the district structure. So just be really clear on that. In terms of the equipment and property sub team, that will be looking after things like county stores, Thriftwood, any other program related equipment we have, and pulling that into one team with one oversight and a clear plan of how that will be offered to county teams and to our members.
Next one is, what will happen with group ASUs?
Again, all ASUs, regardless of what level, whether it's group, district or county in the future, don't exist as they do today. So there won't be separate offshoots, separate committees, all that kind of stuff. But the great stuff that they do is not lost, and will be planned as part of those changes within each group, district or county, into the future teams or sub teams. As we've said before, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a like for like. As you've seen through some of the examples we've given tonight, some of those tasks are spread into different teams across the new structures. So again, if you're not sure when we get to that point, there'll be conversations to be had to make sure everyone has a home, because there is a team for everybody.
The last question I've got is, will the current county teams be asked what role they would like before the roles get advertised to the wider volunteers?
So all current county volunteers will have the opportunity to outline which team they'd like to become a team member of, or teams. The team leader roles will be advertised, ring-fenced or slotted as described earlier. So some of those will be going internally and externally at the same time. Just to be completely transparent, that's not about whether anyone's suitable or not, but I don't know about you, but I couldn't possibly name all 509, I think it is, county volunteers we had today, and definitely don't know every single person's experience and interest. So putting it out for those ones where they're new teams is the fair way. And the way we do things now, if we have a new role, we would advertise it internally, externally. But in terms of all our current county volunteers, to stress again, everyone will have the opportunity to be part of a team and state which teams they would like to join as team members.
That's all the questions that we got.
So the questions, excellent. There was lots and lots of questions there, so it was great. And as it happens, it is bang on 9 p.m. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight, asking loads of really great questions. Hopefully you found the information useful, lots to take away and think about. And we are here if you have further questions to ask. Email us, transformation@essexscouts.org.uk. And obviously our team leaders will be reaching out to teams for meetings, and if you'd like to one-to-one, please email us and we'll make sure that gets to the right person. But thank you again for joining us. Take care, and we'll speak to you all again soon.